Inclusive development is very important, and by inclusive development, we're talking about development that involves the entire society. Takes into account in planning all the elements in the society. Here I'm talking about men, women, physically challenged people, all the facets of the society, because in Africa society we talk of groups, ethnicity, religion, and all that, to make sure that everyone's interest is taken into account, so that nobody feels isolated, nobody feels that his or her interests are not covered. But of course, you can't cover every individual's interest, but at least someone is represented one way or the other. So in development planning, making sure that everyone's voice, everyone's interest is counts. The other aspect is the kind of challenges that you cover in your plan. The issues related to women, the issues related to health, the issues related to human rights, and a lot others, so that you have one comprehensive, plan which responds to the needs of everyone. And this is why we have the SDGs, talking about poverty, talking about development overall, talking about institutions, because if you have a plan, you need institutions to deliver. You need a cohesive society where development can take place. Where you don't have cohesive society is where you have, in a number of countries like Chad, like South Sudan, like other places, you can't think of development in such an environment. If the society is cohesive, it means that people can discuss. People can agree on the way they want to move forward and what it is that they need to do to move forward. So development, inclusive, not only in terms of those who participate, but also in terms of what it covers. In terms of movement of persons, the protocol of movement of persons and the right to reside, the right to establish, was adopted in 2018, along with the CFTA, because you cannot trade, move goods without the human beings moving along. You need to encourage people to be able to move from one place to another to establish. But unfortunately, as we speak, the protocol on movement of persons and the right to reside and establish has been ratified by 4 member states since 2018. Meanwhile, it was supposed to propel the implementation of the CFTA. The CFTA has been ratified by about 47 member states. The goods cannot move on their own. They have to be moved by individuals. And we have to put systems in place that I can move from either Nigeria to Ghana, from Ghana to Cote d'Ivoire, and feel comfortable because the system and the policies enable me to reside and to do business. Because there is no single country with all the resources to develop. You need support from other places, knowledge, technology, and a lot of it. You don't have everything in one place. So when people move, they come along with a lot, that can benefit where they are going to. So I think there is a challenge there, that the failure to ratify and kick into force the protocol of freedom of movement. Yes, that is impacting on inclusiveness, because people who have the means and the resources to move to other places, to participate, to advance development, they are denied that access. Okay? So whether they're people living with disability or people who have the resources, but because of the challenges on ground, they are unable to move, you deny them access, you deny them opportunity, to explore and even to provide support where it is needed. So my call will be, as we see the interest to implement the CFTA, when you ratify the protocol on the free movement of persons, you fast track the process, you expedite the process. So my call would be to say every member state that has ratified the CFTA should proceed. It should have kind of go together. It should go together. So that would be my call. And this is the thing. AU is a member state organization. You all congregate in Addis Ababa to take a decision that this is how we want to go. And when you say we are not talking of the building in Addis Ababa. We are talking about we, the people that came to establish the protocol, which means that you should take it and implement. That is the we. But when you sign, and then go back home, you don't do anything. It can be annoying. Because who is going to implement it if not the same you that adopted it? So efforts must be made by all to encourage member states to ratify and implement the, I don't know what the fears are, that when people move, they take over your country. When people move, I don't know what the fears are. Because I believe that there are other measures, national and regional, that will help people in how they move from one place to another. They are all there. You need to have your papers, you need to have, reason for moving. So I don't know what the fears are. And people still move all the same anyway. Rule of law is at the heart of democratic governance. What do we mean by rule of law? That we as human beings, we are guided by law. We are guided by standards set. We are guided by norms that should regulate how we interact, that should regulate how we do business, that should regulate how we do things overall, and that no one is superior to the other, and that the law is the same for everyone. No one is above the law. It works for you, it works for me. It helps to regulate chaos, because where there is no rule of law, it's like the rule of the jungle. Do whatever you can, and it's okay. But where there's rule of law, there is decency. And this is why people will take their argument to court instead of on the street exchanging, blows, to settle disputes. To say, okay, let's go to a place where I can present my case. You present your case. And whoever, has the better point to make, and then we say, yeah, you have the better argument. So that's where we have a decent environment. And so when you have a decent environment, it means that business can thrive. If you have dispute around the business you do, you can go to court and get justice. If you have quarrel over property, you can go to court and the court listens to you and you can have your claim. And so where there is rule of law, there is room for improvement, for business, for the economy to grow, for people to interact better among themselves. But where there is no rule of law, what you have is chaos. And where you have chaos, there is no development. And that's why they say there is no peace without development, and there's no development without peace. And if there is no rule of law, there is no human rights. You can't have both. You can't have peace, you can't have development, because there is no human rights or there's no rule of law overall. It means that the courts can work. They are available. People can go to courts. The institutions for justice to be assessed, they are available. People trust them. People have confidence that when they go to court, that their case can be heard. Okay? But where there is no rule of law, that it's rule of might. Okay? Because you have so much money, you can bully people, you can get what you want, you can oppress the poor, then there can't be development that benefits everyone. The good thing about the African Union is that it has produced very formidable progressive normative frameworks on how we can organize ourselves, including rule of law. There is the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which has been ratified by all member states. Okay? You have the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance, which tells us how we can organize ourselves, to conduct election, to transfer power from one person to another, to organize our economic, structure, to fight even corruption leave the public resources alone, So we have these legal instruments that when implemented, we can promote an environment that you can say provides for, rule of law. But the challenge is, like I said earlier, some of these normative frameworks are not being ratified. And so the standard we expect that will be promoted by, the adoption of this instrument is lacking. It means that the country or the member state that has ratified this instrument can make more progress than the country that has failed to ratify. So the uniform standard we expect will be provided by introducing these policies. We are denying ourselves that access. So when you fail, you are laden with deficit, governance deficit everywhere. You cannot perform, you cannot deliver. You have parliament that cannot represent the people. Parliament that cannot provide oversight. Parliament that finds itself in the pocket of the executive. So when you talk of separation of powers that AGDEG promotes, if there is none, then the rule of law is challenged. When people have, issues that they will say, okay, our representative will speak for us. When the representative is in the pocket of the executive, nobody speaks for anyone. So African Union provides for me the platform to advance rule of law all over the continent. They provide opportunity for learning from each other. They provide opportunity for advancing the cause of development. Okay, this is why in my intervention 2 days ago I said one of the roles that AU should be playing is not to step in when there is a coup in a country. Step in when we see things that can lead to coup. Prevent it. People demonstrate that lead to coup because there are no services. People are not getting jobs. Roads are not being constructed. Schools are not working. Nothing is working. There is no development overall. So people protest. As a result of the protest, the military, will step in. But you see all this coming. So if you support member states to grow jobs, to grow the economy, people will have jobs and they will not take to the streets. People who are involved in Boko Haram and El Shabaab and the rest of them, when they are busy in their offices, is that when they will have time to go to the bush, to be carrying guns? I don't think so. So they should go beyond norm setting by supporting member states to implement those norms so that we can promote rule of law across the board. Yeah, we must at all times promote inclusive development, like I said earlier. Let me use one instrument of the African Union, the Africa Peer Review Mechanism. This is one instrument, in my view, that is so fundamental in development planning of the member states. Why? The APRM can go to a country, speak to everyone, how do you see your country? How is it work in terms of the economic development, socioeconomic development, political arrangement? How is it working? And they speak to all classes of people. And then you're able to say, okay, these are the challenges we have. Because the poor person has spoken, the rich person has spoken, the middle class people, they have spoken, and so we can agree. These are the issues that we need to deal with. And so when you put your plans together, because of the information you have generated from speaking to everyone, then you can ensure that the voices and the needs of the poorest of the poor are included in your plan. The second is to make resources available to implement those plans so that the people at the grassroots benefit. Men, women, people living with disability, they all benefit because in your plan, you have taken them into account. The third is to fight corruption. I don't know whether fighting corruption is the right word to do, but setting up structures, well, whether it's to reduce or to eliminate, but I think it's to eliminate. It's to eliminate. Because let's aim high. So if what we get is to reduce, we make effort. Because if you leave yourself at the level of reducing corruption, then you are just, whatever you do, yeah, you are reducing corruption. Let's aim high that we want to eliminate. Then if we succeed in reducing, we are making progress. Why am I saying this? Because if there is corruption, we are denying inclusive development. Because resources meant for the poor will not get to them. Resources meant to build roads, to build schools that the poor can attend, to make hospitals work, so that everyone, you fall sick, you can go to the hospital and get treated. You know, to create a space where everyone feels I belong is there. The other thing is also, because very often we focus on state building, we want to, you know, establish institutions and all that, without recognizing that there are people in the country who have never felt the impact of their government. There's no presence of their government where they live. And this is why in some areas you hear of ungoverned spaces. As far as they are concerned, they are just there. So if you focus on nation building to ensure that, you know, everyone is taken into account in planning and in development. For instance, if you are building roads, please help me to kill that. If you are building roads, just put it off. If you are building roads, to make sure that every corner of the country, as much as possible, they have roads. Because when you have roads, you are opening up spaces for development. Those people who are in the farms can bring their products to the city to sell and make money. You reach out to them, the government's presence is reaching out to them. But if you claim that, how much vote did I get from that part of the country? But you are the president of the country. You are not the president of only those who voted for you. So whether they did or they did not, you are their president. So you must make sure that you have development that covers almost everyone. And so for me, that would be the way to go. They have the tools to deploy, but every time we talk of political will, the commitment, the honesty to do the right thing. So yeah, we need visionary leaders. We need leaders who are committed. We need leaders with passion, that what affects the individual in the North is the same that should concern me when it affects the individual in the South or in the West or wherever it is. We need such a leader who is not defined by ethnicity or defined by religion, but defined by passion for the development of his country. The biggest challenges facing African countries in implementing development initiatives, I think the first one again, is leadership, I will say. Why? God has been so kind to deposit in Africa resources that should enable us to lift ourselves out of poverty. We have natural resources, gold, diamond, lithium, name them, uranium, we have petrol, we have the sunshine that we can use to generate electricity and others. We have so much, but the failure has been turning these natural resources God has given us into development. So if we are able to put value in the resources that God has given to us, we really can advance development. So the challenge is that we have failed to transform those natural resources into profitable ventures. I mean, that should advance the cause of everyone. When people talk about resources, we have the natural resources, but what are the resources that we need? The factors of production are what? Land, labor, and capital. Don't we have land? We have. And we have a large portion of our land is arable, which means we can produce and feed ourselves. How well are we doing in that? If you talk of labor, we are told that Africa is the youngest continent. About 65% of our population is under 24, which means you have people able to work, a resource. What are we doing with that? And then you talk of capital. You can negotiate with the natural resources that you have or turn them to capital. I know that Africa does not exist in isolation. This is why we have people with technology and capital that we can discuss with and make good money from the natural resources that we have to build our roads, to build our schools, to make life more livable for every African. So the capacity to transform those into profitable resources for everyone is there. I've spoken about corruption earlier. It's sad that despite the African Union Convention for Preventing Acrobatic Corruption, which has been ratified by so many countries, corruption is still there. For the part of African Union, we have the Commission, we have the protocol, the convention, we have the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption. We should support member states to implement. But I think that agency is poorly funded. It does not have the capacity to help itself, not to talk of helping member states. So the need to make sure that corruption is eliminated in all spheres of our life. In UNDP, we call this governance of things. What is governance of things? To make sure that whatever we do, there is transparency and accountability, there is voice, there is participation, okay? There is ownership of the people, okay? It's not seen as imposed on them. So whether we are building roads, there must be governance of things there. We need to know who owns the company that is constructing the road. We need to know the process of awarding the contracts, and whether this person or this company has what it takes to do the job. Those people to be served where the road will go through need to know, how they contribute to this and how it will benefit them. Because of lack of transparency, contracts are awarded and they're not executed. The money is paid out, but those to benefit from it, they are not there. So the need to focus on reducing corruption, talking of capacity, is there. Our problem is not just about we don't have money, so we go all over the place loaning here and there. The question really is, what do we do with those loans? Every new administration is laden with, so much loan that you have to pay back. Now you have to start thinking of imposing taxes and taxes and taxes instead of focusing on productivity. Because when there's production, people can pay. But if you need to muzzle people with the little they have, you say pay more taxes. This is why people revolt. Apart from revolting because they don't have the resources to pay, they revolt because what you collect from them, they don't see what to do with it. Your life is completely different from what they see simply because you're a politician, you just get transformed. But everyone is sorrowing why it's a different story with you. On this question of African leaders and institutions working together to balance economic growth, again, everyone is talking about CFTA. But we hope that with CFTA, we can focus on production. But going out of that, my personal opinion will be, I wish to see regional development. What do I mean by regional development? If we go to West Africa, for instance, and there is something one country can produce better, can the members around say, we cannot produce as much as you can, but we will support you to produce so that all of us benefit, so that we are not investing in what will not be profitable at the end of it. So that in maybe Nigeria or Cote d'Ivoire, something, you focus on producing something that is common to them. It could be, I don't know what it is, but exactly. Cocoa, which Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire is producing, how can we support them to produce more so that we can have investment around chocolate and other things? Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, you produce cocoa. You go to any supermarket around here, I'm not sure you're going to see made in Cote d'Ivoire chocolate. But you see chocolate made from cocoa from Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, but it's not carrying Ghana or Cote d'Ivoire's name. So to say you are very good at producing cocoa, how can we support you, invest more in this area, and then, you produce more for the rest of us? Which other country, what can you do better than any of us? How can we support so that we have regional base doing this instead of every country trying to do the same thing? The cost is shared, you have more. There must be effort to open up the regions. Flight within West Africa is pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult. In the past, we used to have Cam Air, Ghana Air, Nigeria Air, Air Afrique, and it made movement easier. But right now, as we look to the future, that is one area I wish to see, improving on. Communication is another. It's very easy. You stay here, you talk to people all over the place, but you have your SIM card from your country, you move to the next country, you need another SIM card. You move to another country, I have a pile of SIM cards like that. So we need to improve in communication. The third is still on the freedom of movement. I'm sure this Dangote's interview of how many visas he needs. If Dangote is talking about this, who am I? Who are you? So I think we should be honest in opening up the borders so that people can trade among themselves. Like you heard in one of the presentations, Africans trade more with outside or outsiders than they trade among themselves. That has to change. That has to change. The third is putting value on the natural resources. When you export the natural resources in their raw forms, you're exporting jobs. You're exporting so many opportunities to other countries, taking them out of Africa. And this is what our young people on the high sea, in the desert, they go chasing as they go to Europe. Many of them die, out there. So if you put value in the natural resources that God has given you, I mean, if you have gold, you transform the gold from the raw to what people use, the refined one, taxes are paid, institutions are established, factories are established that can produce them here. You create the jobs. The oil, you have your refineries to produce and, supply for domestic use and sell out. Because if you look at the crude, it has about 26 to 27 byproducts that you can establish factories on. But when you take the whole thing that you send out, you are also exporting those byproducts. And so you are not creating jobs. So for me, an AU should make effort to implement the normative frameworks they have established to improve the economy, to improve transparency and accountability, to improve the rule of law. We are not a continent in isolation. We work with the rest of the world, and we don't have a different standard for judging our conduct. So we have to be seen able and capable in dealing with the rest of the world. Values, for me, that is the driver. Because with democracy, we are saying people should have a voice on how they are governed. They should, because all of us cannot become president, we should, come together and say, you will lead us. We are giving you the mandate to lead us. You are accountable to us. We have selected people from our communities to work with you to make sure that our interests are covered in every plan that you have. From the federal to the sub-federal or the sub-national to the least, that everyone's interests is taken into account. This we should do through regular elections. Why do we have regular elections? When you, after 5 years, 10 years, I think there is some form of fatigue that can set in. So you inject new blood. For people that have not delivered, you have opportunity to change them so that you don't have one person, whether you like it or not, whether he's performing or not. I mean, you can't change. But when you have the regular elections, you have opportunity to change leadership, bring new ideas for those that have not worked, test them, change them. Because this is what we are told in a number of normative frameworks. The African Charter on Human and People's Right, I think Article 13, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 21, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, Article 24 or 25, Article 25. They are all saying the will of the people should be the basis on which government is formed. They are saying that the people have the right to participate in the government of their country, either by direct representative or by they themselves participating. It's very clear. And these instruments are not alien to us. The African Charter, African Union did it, put it together, or AU. So someone cannot say it's alien is because it is whatever. The International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights is not alien to us. The Universal Declaration is not alien to us. Yet the will of the people must prevail at all times. If it is not democracy, then it does not become the will of the people. And so we will be dealing with arbitrariness. We are dealing with decrees. We are dealing with people waking up and saying, this is how I want things done. It's not thought through. There is no, your voice and my voice have not been taken into account in deciding what it is that we want to do. The rule of the gun is not acceptable. So democracy is not the problem. It's what we have done with democracy, how we have managed our democracy. We have other countries around the world that have made progress through democracy, making sure that laws are fair and serve everyone. This is why we have the parliament. Before any law is adopted to say we want, and the parliament has this opportunity, public hearing, for people to come and say, no, 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 we don't want it. Yes, we want it, how it works for us. You hear everyone's voice. Can I say, okay, having listened to everyone, this is the way we should go. That's democracy. but otherwise will amount to arbitrariness. So democracy is not the problem, it's how we use democracy. So we need to maybe look inward and ask, what are we really not doing right? A situation where one individual has been in power for 40 years? Is it democracy that caused it, or we caused it? A situation where we know quite all right that the money meant for that bridge, someone has used it to buy private jet to fly himself and his family, and we have a rafter as boat to cross to the other side, and every now and then people die. Is it democracy that gave it to us, or that we have just decided? Because democracy says that we should hold that person accountable. So if we decide not to hold the person accountable, is it democracy that caused it? No, it's the way we have used democracy. Okay? So it's not, it's how we practice democracy that is the problem. That's my own reading of it. It's how we practice our own democracy. We don't hold our people accountable. We just let them be. Look at during elections. Elections are held in Africa like war. Elections are coming, it's like you are preparing for war. Elections shouldn't be about that. And I say, when they talk about credible elections or outcome that is credible, I say you cannot have credible election in an environment that is not credible. I mean, how can you do that when the culture of the people is corruption? How will managing election be holy? How? How will it be credible? Because people who are implementing it, all their life, all they know is to cheat and to rob and to deny other people their rights. So when they have access and opportunity to manage election, will they not do it? When the courts are acting on, the highest bidder, and then you are cheated in an election and you go to court, will it not be the highest bidder who gets the mandate? So you cannot think of credible election in an environment that itself is not credible. So we must focus on making sure that there's rule of law at all times, so that when it comes to election, people behave decently. When there are other challenges, people know that there is a level playing, ground for everyone, whether you are rich or you are poor. The rich, you break the law, you can go to jail. The poor, you break the law, you can go to jail. So the law works for everyone.